Hey guys, how you doing? Hey, I'm in a topic of this whole planet Earth thing, or Nibiru. Looks like that's back. I know I covered this back in 2012, and there's all of a sudden they're popping up again about these two suns and different things that are happening, and which is kind of interesting because I know this David Mean, he talked about the end of the world happening in April the 23rd, which didn't happen. But he mentioned about Nibiru coming, and that's part of the wiping out of that. And reason why that's kind of interesting, I know it's popping up on the internet and stuff like that, and people are really watching this thing. And, you have NASA saying that there is no such place and so forth. But and then later on, before then, they mentioned that there is a dwarf star and stuff like that. So they obviously know stuff. I know they talked about it, and it was a dwarf star that happened. I believe it was about a year ago, something like that. There was a coverage on that and so forth. But which is kind of interesting because the whole thing up of this asteroid thing, there is biblical truth on that. It may not be called Nibiru or planet X, but it's called Wormwood. It's in the Bible, and I just want to read this quick regarding this. This is in Revelation chapter 8, where it talks about the seventh seal, and talks about the different seals and the angels bringing the bowls and the trumpets and so forth, incense, and the judgment on earth, basically. And then I'm just going to skip down to this on verse 8, where it talks about the second angel sounded, and as it were, a giant mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures were in the seas had life, died, and third part of the ships destroyed. Fire from heaven burning, as it was a lamp, and it fell onto the third parts of the rivers and upon the fountains of the waters, and the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many died in the waters because it was bitter. So it talks about a great star that falls from the sky, and it's called Wormwood. And that's in Revelation 10, where it talks about that. And now we're talking about this planet X and Nibiru that's so-called coming to the earth, and it's going to hit the earth and wipe out parts of it. Listening to the David Mead one, when he talks about he didn't really say the end of the world. He did say that Nibiru was going to hit. He called it Nibiru, and then he had some Bible verses on that regarding that. So, and the Bible talks about it hitting the earth and destroying parts of the earth, like third parts of the earth, or parts of it, but a major part of it. And so you can imagine why there's some interest on this, because there is an asteroid that's going to hit, according to the Bible, and it's called Wormwood. People are calling it Planet X or Nibiru, or whatever you call it. And then you have NASA saying, yeah, it does exist and it doesn't exist. There's a dwarf planet and there isn't, and all this stuff, and which is kind of interesting. And there is a actual CNN video that was covering that, and that was back in 2011 or 12, which I covered regarding the brown dwarf star in our system, and they actually covered it, and they had pictures of that. And then later on, NASA said that there is a planet out there, and so it's out there. It's a lot of hush and everything, so that's why people are kind of questioning when it's going to hit. And there's some pictures that come up, videos, you see two suns and something going behind it and stuff, so there's a lot of question regarding this thing. Another thing I just want to bring up as well, and I heard this from actually one of my Jewish rabbi friends mentioned about this asteroid that was going to come by. And this is back in Comet Ellen, when it was going to hit and everybody's all worried about it and stuff. But he did mention about an asteroid that's going to come in 2000, and I think it was, first they said it was 2029, and if you look in Wikipedia, it talks about it. It says it's back in, let's see here, 2029. It says Apodosius or something like that. That's the name of the asteroid, and it's a big asteroid that's mostly close to us, and that most likely will hit the Earth and stuff. So that's in 2029 where they said it's going to be coming or whatever. And then you have another article here, a newer one, that was released in November of last year. This is a gigantic asteroid could destroy the Earth in 2036. And then you have another article says the same thing about NASA fears of asteroid will wipe out the Earth at the date of 2026. Well, if you check with that, NASA, they'll deny it and say it's not going to happen. But on these documents, they said that there is an asteroid that's going to come by the Earth around that. So is that the Wormwood that everybody's talking about, or Nibiru, that's happening, that people are seeing in the skies of these two suns or whatever? That's a mystery, but we know, according to the Bible, it does talk about that. What I want to talk about is the timeline, okay? Reason why it's kind of interesting and why it comes back to effect on that, because you look at Matthew 24 where it talks about, let's look at Matthew 24 quick. And it talks about Matthew 24, if you go into that chapter, it talks about Jesus, talks about the temple and being destroyed in the third temple and so forth. He says his disciples asked him, when is the end of the world will come? And then Jesus says, take heed, no man will deceive you, for many will come in my name, say, I am the Christ, and deceive many. Well, we know that's true. That's happening as we speak. There's many that are saying that I am the Christ, I am the way, and so forth. I am the Messiah, and so forth. There's a lot of religions out there saying these things. It's been going on for years. And we know the other part where it says, for nations will rise against nations, kingdom against kingdoms, famines and pestilence, earthquakes. Well, obviously that's happening. You know that. The other part of it where it's talking about is people will be offended, within and betray one another. Many false prophets will arise. We know that's happening. And then, the iniquities around love will become cold. Well, that's obvious. And then the gospel shall be preached around the world, and the end will come. That's the key part right there. So we know, because of the internet and the things that are happening, it's possible, man. I mean, the Bible being preached upon the whole earth, and because the technology is just being reached out, so everybody hears the gospel. So we can't deny that. So that's the timeline, which is kind of interesting. But also, I just want to mention also, because we have the third temple. Talk about the third temple happening in Jerusalem, where the Jews wants to rebuild the third temple. And we know in Scripture where it talks about the third temple here, and talks about the Antichrist, and that's going to happen as well. You look at here's some scriptures just to back up what I'm saying. Matthew 24:3, where it talks about Jesus on the Mount Olivet saying about the second temple, prophesies the events of the second temple and the third temple. Matthew 15, when it talks about the abomination of desolation, the Antichrist will stand in the temple proclaiming to be God, and Jesus described that this will be the abomination of desolation at the holy place. Matthew 24:15, it says that this is prophesied according to Daniel the prophet. So this is confirmation of Daniel the prophet. Thessalonians chapter 2 talks about the temple desolation as well. Again, there's another one that talks about the Antichrist. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3 and 4 talks about no man will deceive you. Many will say that will come and fall away first by sin of the man revealed by the son of perdition. That's talking about the Antichrist. And who exalts himself before God in worship, and God in the temple, showing himself as he is God. And so we know that that's in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3. Revelations 11 1 and 2 talks about the third temple again. The temple mount during the 3.5 years immediately represents the second coming of Jesus Christ in the battle of Armageddon. So it's interesting that it says that the final 3 and 1 have basically 3.5 years preceding to the second coming of Jesus in the battle of Armageddon, which is kind of scary because I want to say this, that okay, so we all know about the 70 years, and I've been talking about that, the 70-year celebration and prophecy according to Jewish, and how important this thing is. And then comes to 30, when I mentioned about Jesus being the age of 30, and then he had 3 years, 3.5 years according to this, and then his ministry ended and he was up in heaven and so forth. So we know that as a lot of the prophetic, they mention Trump as being the Cyrus in the Bible, where it talks about he's the one who initiated the temple and so forth. So as we know, facts is that this is happening. The third temple, the moving of the capital of Jerusalem, and so there's a lot of tension happening in the Middle East regarding that. We know that for sure, and so what they want to do is build the third temple. So that's kind of reality that's kind of happening as well. So you have all the signs that are happening, and now you have Nibiru. A lot of people have been talking about that because they've been kind of avoiding it. But we know in Wormwood, it talks about Wormwood, so it is true that's going to happen. So that's something to think about because of the timeline that's happening. So, according to this reading what they're talking about, the Apodopagos asteroid that's more likely to hit the Earth somehow, unless they wipe it out or something like that. But that's in either 2029 or 2036. That's what they said that will come. But what interesting is that they said 5 asteroids that came by close to the Earth, and there was one, I think, that came by that NASA didn't even know about, and it passed by, and people saw it in the skies. So it was reported. So you can tell that these aren't very accurate calculations and stuff like that. So we don't know exactly. But the question is, Wormwood, is it real? Yeah, it is real. Is that Nibiru? Maybe, and could be. And so if it does hit, no bunkers is going to save you. If that hits, you've got Yellowstone there, and you got that big old volcano that could erupt as well. And going to the subject about volcanoes, there's a lot of volcanoes are happening as well, and so a lot of eruptions happening. Another weird thing is that people have noticed, and I hear a lot of people talk about the weather and how weird the weather is, everywhere. It's just weather is going crazy. It's not normal. For the change and everything that's happening, the cold, hot, snow, and then sun and rain, hail, and all the stuff, and the dust storm that's happening and all this stuff. So there's a lot of weird things happening. But I was told by somebody that said, and this was interesting, and during my researches or whatever, that when this meteor, this planet X, or this Nibiru that comes by the Earth, it would cause this magnetic, and it would cause like storms and tsunamis and a lot of weird stuff. So they're saying, this guy says that it's in the atmosphere. There's people saying that it is right now, and so there's a lot of cover up and all this stuff. But the truth is, the weather is getting weird. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff happening that's not normal. And I don't know, it just seems like it's getting close to that. I don't have an exact date when I'm going to say this thing's going to hit, because I don't know. But I can tell you that Jesus said, when you see the signs, he didn't say no man shall know when the second coming will come. No man will know the exact date, but he did say that when you look at the signs, things are near. So I would say the signs is near, and it's time to be ready for what's about to happen. So my hope is that and prepare yourself for what's about to happen. So that's about it. Subject on this Nibiru and this Planet X thing. And bless you guys. God bless you guys.